$20 million of drought relief heading to Oklahoma farmers.
We don't see a good rain soon. There's a concern a flash drought will likely develop pretty quickly.
Fields of wheat left bone dry throughout the Sooner State.
Pretty troubling news. Unless some major rain comes in, this drought is only going to continue. And yes, while these signs.
My name's Berney Blue. I am from Colgate, Oklahoma. I'm married to my wife Cheyenne, and I have two great kids. My son is Asher, he's 4 years old, and my daughter is Skylar, she's 2. Thanks to the good Lord, they're the greatest loves of my life. I tell you, I love this group. This is a fun group to be a part of. Kind of like that family that you have that you only get to see at Christmas and Thanksgiving, you know, and every time somebody is having trouble, you know, they're down, you know those people are praying for you, and it's just a really special group to be a part of. This year's story kind of begins in the middle of a drought. I'm 44 years old, and this is probably the worst drought that I have seen in my lifetime. We start out June the 1st with no rain, and the first rain that we really got was middle of October. So it just completely threw our entire season off. The way you normally hunt wasn't going to work this year. We really had to kind of think about how we were going to get this deal done this year, and I really kind of had to go back to old school where you were trying to kind of hunt scrapes and do things like that, because your food sources were gone, you know, and a lot of your water sources were gone. My year actually started out, I was hunting a buck that I call the oak buck, and I'm going to estimate this buck to be in probably the mid 160s. Just a phenomenal buck that I have watched for the last couple of years, and I just kind of told myself this year was the year that I was gonna, this was my year to kill this buck. And you know, in my lifetime, I don't ever remember missing an opening day of deer season.
You know, I cannot remember ever missing a opening morning, and this year I had some prior obligations that I didn't realize were going to fall on opening morning, but they did. And while I was doing those prior obligations, I found out that my buck, for the first time, daylighted in the morning. I got some nice little muddy trail cam pics of the buck smiling at the camera. Apparently knew I wasn't there.
Kind of got personal with this buck, so my whole thing now is I'm going to do what it takes to get this buck on the ground. For the first week, I tried, you know, just kind of my standard setup and going to let him come to me. And several times, you know, I could see him from the tree stand, and he just wouldn't commit to come in to where I was at. So I knew I had to make a move.
Okay, for this evening's set, I decided to try something a little bit different. We had a front blow in this afternoon, and it wind's blowing about 15 miles an hour or so out of the north, which is coming in from this side, blowing to the south. And I've been watching these deer the last few days, and a lot of them are coming out of these thickets right here off to my left. They're crossing right here across this flat right here in front of me. And then some of them are going to the stand, and then some of them are kind of going and detouring around it. So I decided that I would come out here and kind of check things out, and I found this cedar tree kind of hollowed out, and decided to kind of make me a makeshift ground blind right here and see if I couldn't catch these deer coming out of the thickets before they make their detour. It's pretty open, but I really think I can probably get drawn back and everything on these deer before they see me, before they really get out here looking for any issues.
About 2 days after I made that little ground blind, I actually had my first experience with the oak buck within shooting range. It was just a few minutes before dark, and I actually had the buck dead to rights, 35 yards, and he just, it was one of those time periods there where it was very questionable about whether the shot was going to be good and clear, whether the footage was going to be good and clear. You know, I just couldn't guarantee myself that it was going to be quality footage when when it was over with, and I really felt like this buck deserved to have the quality footage. I really felt like this buck's story really deserved the best effort that I could give it. And so I let this buck walk. I mean, I sat there and watched him for 15, 20 minutes, and you know, you can just barely see him, you know, when it's all said and done. I sat there and watched him make a scrape. You know, he's liking this area that he's at. He thinks he's safe, and I feel like I've got I feel like I've got him dead to rights. It's just a matter of time for him to come back out and give me that opportunity. And I've stuck with that setup, and I stayed with it plumb through muzzleloader season, and I never saw the buck again. It was just one of those deals where you feel confident, and you know, reality kind of jumps up and slaps you in the face. And so that's kind of the way my whole year was. Around November the 1st, I changed to a different spot. I kind of decided that, you know, I was going to let that buck rest a while. I kind of pushed him a little bit and kind of wore that area out. So I decided that I was going to go hunt a different spot, and my first kill is a doe.
It's November the 1st. This is my third set in this blind. I come in here yesterday late afternoon and finished covering this blind. This is a homemade blind I made out of cow panels and tarps. Got the brown side of the tarp on the outside. And this is a spot that I have not messed with at all this year until yesterday when I come in here. I come in here and I planted the food plot here about 2 weeks ago, right before we got our first rain in like 4 months. But I've had such a rough year so far. And this drought has just completely flip-flopped everything about the way I hunt and the way the deer have moved. It's just completely different this year than it has been for the last 3 or 4 years.
I'd sit in this spot for 2 days, and I had a group of does come in every day, same group of does, and one of those does looked like she'd been hit by a car or something had happened, but this doe was just absolutely as poor as she could be. Her bones were sticking out, shoulder bones were sticking out, her backbone sticking out. For a deer that is coming out of what should be the best part of the year, she just looked terrible. You could tell something wasn't right with this deer.
That's the first doe I've ever killed in my life. There's no reason for her to be that poor. She's got something going on with her. But her ribs are showing. She's just poor as she can be. And there's no reason for her to look as poor as she does when you look at the other does that are with her. There's no reason for her to look like that.
You know, it was just one of those 10-ring shots. You know, she didn't run 20 yards, laid over. I really felt like it was a good ethical kill on a deer that really needed to be taken out of the herd. She wasn't going to make the winter. You're coming out of the best part of the year, and for her to be in that kind of shape, she was one of those that needed to go. Okay, so after muzzleloader season, I get a phone call from a friend of mine who has a job offer. He calls and tells me about this job, and I go and interview for it, and ends up that I get this new job right in the middle of deer season. We're talking, well, my first day was the 14th of November, which is right in the prime time of rut for southeastern Oklahoma especially. So I started, you know, the rut out on a 10-day hitch on this new job working for this midstream company. From the 14th of November to the 24th of November, I'm working 12, 14 hours days, and I'm going to work in the dark and I'm coming home in the dark every day. So the only deer I got to see was the deer that were outside the plant fence. So after I spend my first 10-day hitch at this new job, I'm ready to get back out into the woods and hit it hard. and we're about 5 days into rifle season at this point. At this point, you know, we're into the second half of season, and now it's not a hunt for a certain buck. Now we're looking for a mature buck.
Okay guys, it's December the 13th, and we're back down here in this creek bottom. Looks really good. We had front come through last night, or actually this morning right at daylight, and just brought a ton of rain. I think these deer have probably been bedded up all day. Got a light breeze out of the south, which is perfect for this set. You know, this little creek bottom right here, good place to get it done. Right now, with it being late season, these deer are just working their way up down these creeks, just scavenging for whatever they can find to eat.
One of the deer that is in this group is a buck that I call Sixer, and he's a 6-point, and I'm gonna estimate this buck close to 120 inches for a 6-point. I mean, this buck is probably pushing 20 inches wide, extremely tall, but he's just a straight 6, and that's all he's been since I've known this buck for the last 2 or 3 years. So I'm sitting there one evening, and I can see deer coming through the timber, coming through this creek bottom. Buck steps out. It's not Sixer. I really didn't feel like this buck was the buck I was after. I could see Sixer coming in the background, and I had pretty well told myself, that's the buck I want.
I can't tell if they hit him, bro. I don't know what happened, but it didn't sound like a hit. I'll go back and review the footage. I just don't know. I thought I was on him. It just shows you the way my season is going right there. It did not sound like a hit.
Clean miss. I mean, there's no other way to say it. I hate to admit it, but anyway, you know, as operator error on the bow, I know that bow is on, so it was just one of those things where, you know, it all falls back on me. I went back and forth trying to hunt that spot, and it was Christmas Day.
Okay, Merry Christmas, everybody. It is Christmas Day 2022. The presents have all been opened. The turkey's been eaten. The family's all got together, and it's been a great Christmas, but it's time to go hunt. So we're going back down to the creek bottom set. We know there's a lot of deer moving through there, and it's just a great place for the deer to filter through. We're gonna go get set up, and hopefully we can get us a good Christmas present.
Not a lot happening for most of the evening. I had one little 2-year-old buck come out there, and he spent a good while right there around me. And just a little bit before dark, I hear a deer behind me coming in, and I could tell this was a pretty heavy deer. So I'm getting ready, and I'm trying to film behind me best I can, and I can't get it on him. I can't find him in the camera, and I didn't want to turn because I didn't know where he was at or where he was looking. So I didn't want to really turn my body to look at him, so I'm trying to get it all with the camera. And eventually this buck steps out, and hey, it's Christmas. It was time for me to get another present.
Domino on Christmas Day, baby. Yes. I've had
such a difficult year. To finally put the hammer on a mature buck. I hit him solid. I know that was a good hit.
I let him get out there about 20 yards and he stepped broadsided. I remembered to fix my peep sight, and I drew back, and rest is history for that buck. And I'm sitting there trying to do my commentary in the tree, and I look up and here comes more deer.
I think he'll just be right out there. That's where deer go. Maybe we can pull off a double.
Luckily, I hadn't made too much noise, hooping and hollering, and so I'm back in the game. Here comes these deer, and the closer they get, I notice one of them is Sixer. He's back. He's here to torment me again. Like I did before, I sat and wait on this buck, and eventually he steps out, and he's basically the same spot he was the first time I shot at him. Pulled my bow up, drew back.
Twice.
I can't really say nothing but the fact I missed him the second time. Twice in 1 year. He was born under a lucky star, apparently. But I tell you, I don't know how you can go from, it was one of those deals. I was on a high with the buck that I had just harvested, and Sixer was just kind of, icing on the cake, and I didn't get him. I wasn't going to let that ruin my day. I had a good buck on the ground, and he'll probably be a 6-point again this coming year, and that just made it that much more personal for me for this next season. So Sixer, you're on my radar, buddy. You're going down this next season.
Excited to get the good mature buck in front of me and get the draw back on one. And the Bowtech Solution SS is always lethal. I started using the NAP Hellraiser broadheads this year. As you can see, I 10 ringed him and just chewed him up. And he's just a good mature buck. He's no monster, but for a buck to start the season with, for me, even though it's late season, I'm just tickled to death with him. Just a perfect Christmas present for 2022.